Good evening, everyone. As Jessica said, the three of us are going to share the presentation, and we're going to go through a little bit about the district, the state of our facilities, and a little summary of where we'd like to go next with our facilities. I'm Jay Strang. I'm the Chief School Business Official. To give you a little sense of our district, we have a total of 35 buildings, 33 schools, 1 preschool, 21 elementary schools, 7 middle, and 3 high schools. And we have an alternative high school. We encompass Naperville, Aurora, Bolingbrook, and Plainfield. If you're thinking we've got 33 buildings, but we've got 35 buildings but 33 schools. We have Wheatland, which is our operations and maintenance facility, and the Burkett Center is counted as a separate building, although it's the one high school over at Neuqua with the same campus. So that's where you come up with your 35 buildings. We cover 46 square miles and are in DuPage and Will County. It's about a 60-40 split, with DuPage County being the larger of the counties. We have 4 million square feet of building space, which is larger than the Merchandise Mart. 662 acres of property, which is twice the size of Six Flags Great America. We've been out there. And we have 101 acres of paved property, which is the same as Disney World down in Orlando. So it's a really large operation. We had EMG facility assessments come in about 5 years ago and talk to the district, and they assessed all of our components, our interior, our building envelope, our boilers, our electrical, our head-end systems, our intercoms, our windows, and they looked at the age of our buildings, and a part of their assessment was to go through and determine the condition of our facilities. And the one thing that they also determined was the useful life of our facilities. And you can see every one of our buildings on the bar chart there, and Mattia Valley High School being our newest. And of the 75 years of useful life, we've got a lot of life left in that one. But down here at the far left, you can see Indian Plains and Wheatland. Indian Plains is an alternative high school where we house some kids who need some special programmings. And we've used that facility now, and we will continue to use it in the future. But we need to put about $1.6 million into it to get it back into shape. And the Board of Education decided that the building is so old and beyond its useful life that it doesn't make sense to put $1.6 million into that facility. So we won't be having that school around very long. Wheatland, which has about 8 years of building life left in it, is one of the original schools, as well as Indian Plains to the district. And Wheatland is currently our operations and maintenance center. It's an old elementary school, but we use that for operations and maintenance and our food service management. So those two buildings are our oldest. Mattia Valley is our newest, and we are a maturing district. At one point in time, we were one of the fastest growing districts in the state of Illinois, and we've built all of our facilities, and now they're starting to age on us. As I mentioned earlier, EMG did a comprehensive facility study. EMG was not associated with any type of financing firm or construction firm. All they do is survey facilities, look at all of the different components of a building, look at the useful life of those components, and tell you when, given the condition of the building, the money that you put in maintaining the building, when you should start replacing some items like boilers, roofs, walls, windows, asphalt. So they looked at the entire interior and exterior of the building. They looked at elevators, plumbing, HVAC, our sprinkler systems, our electrical, and our other features like our sidewalks, our parking lots, our floor tiles, and they put an entire spreadsheet together of what that looked like across all of our schools. What EMG said is that we should be spending, well, here's the roof replacements. We should be spending $1,811,000 on average to maintain all of the roofs in our district. And you can see in the blue line, each of the fiscal years going back from to 2012 to 2017, what we actually put into our facilities to replace roofs. And you can see in the green bar the money that we spent to repair roofs, to patch them, to fix the leaks, to push those along. So roofing is one area where we've deferred a lot of maintenance. If you've been in the district for a while, you know that during the Great Recession we cut $40 million out of our budget. One of the first ways that we looked at cutting that money out of our budget was to take it out of our operations and maintenance program and to try and keep it away from the classrooms as much as possible. As the recession continued, It's unfortunate to say that it impacted kids more, impacted classrooms more, impacted schools more, but we haven't gotten to the point with our operations and maintenance budget to put the money in that the facility assessment says we should to maintain our facilities like they'd want us to. This is our capital project spending over the history of the last 10 years. EMG said that given the size of our facilities and all of the things that they assessed, we should be spending about $8.5 million annually to keep our buildings in shape. Now that's an average. Some of the fiscal years they said we should be spending $17 million because there's more items that are coming up and should be replaced at that point in time. And in other years it's $2 million, but when you average out the 20-year life cycle that they costed out, it's $8.5 million. You can see that we don't spend $8.5 million to maintain our district. We spent $3.2 million in 2007. We're up to $6 and $5 million in the most recent fiscal years. And you can see in the red box how we reduced our facilities and operations capital projects budget during the Great Recession. That's when we were trying to balance our budget and run efficiently when the state wasn't giving us our money and the consumer price index was low and we weren't receiving much money in property taxes. So we've not maintained or put money into our capital projects, and there's nothing on the horizon that suggests we're going to be able to meet that $8.5 million. We have comparable districts that we like to coordinate and track and compete with both academically and financially. Our comparable districts are Naperville 203, Geneva, Elmhurst, St. Charles, Batavia, Barrington, Wheaton, and this is the entire operations and maintenance budget. So when you think about capital outlay, that's the roofs, that's the floor tile, the maintenance. When you think about the personnel, the salaries and the benefits, the number of employees. When you think about small repairs, when you think about electric and heating, you can see that on average, when you break that spending down per student, we spend $805 annually to operate our school district. Now, we're the largest of all of our comparable districts, so when you break it down by student, it gives you a more normalized comparison. You can see that Naperville spends $1,864, Geneva $1,835, Elmhurst $1,232, and so on. So we spend less than half of what Naperville 203 does. And if you come out to the March presentation, I'll share some financial information about why we spend so much less and why we have to spend so much less. Our two districts are incredibly different from a revenue perspective. It shocks people. So the average spend in all of facilities, all of custodial maintenance, is $1,262, and we're well below that. When you're operating that efficiently, you can't get everything done that you'd like to, and you certainly can't get everything done that the schools would like you to. So we really prioritize where we put our money, and we defer things. We defer things and we defer things. Items will be on the list for 10 years. Unexpected safety issues is a top priority. If it's a door that jams and we can't exit kids, that gets fixed. Approved curricular items, if there's a change in programming and a classroom needs to be converted to a new space because that's what's required, we take care of that. Necessary repairs, state-required life safety projects. Every year, the state of Illinois comes in and surveys a tenth of our schools. We broke it down by square footage, and they make sure that all of our buildings are up to code. So every 10 years, every year they're through a tenth of our district. So at the end of the 10 years, they've seen their entire district, and they start that process over. And we have to make those building code improvements. So if it's a panic bar, that now we have to have panic bars on certain doors or handrails in certain stairwells, we make those repairs. The last thing that we look at is aesthetics. We really don't give an opportunity to make many improvements there, and that's usually where you hear from the building principals where they like to have something, you know, that improves the look of their school, the sidewalk maybe. We don't necessarily get to those items.
As more and more projects were deferred and funds became limited, we had to be much more reactive rather than proactive in scheduling our capital improvements. This meant the roof that leaked the most was replaced first instead of the roof that was the oldest. This slide shows you a sample of our most common deferred projects. Please note this is not a complete list of all of our deferred projects. We have much, much more. Also at your table, you have pictures of some of these projects, and I would like you to refer to them at this time. Project number 1, the left picture shows white marks or stains on the brick. This is efflorescence, which is a crystallic deposit of salt. It occurs either when water is present on or in the masonry surface. Most often, you see this occurring right after the buildings are built. However, in older buildings, it is a sign that the wall is leaking. The picture on the right shows what happens if this continues and that water penetrates the interior wall. When this occurs, we closely monitor the situation to make sure that the moisture does not impact carpeting, ceiling tile, or drywall so that other issues won't develop. Deferred project number 2 is a significant wall leak over at Georgetown. It was at the point where we had to install tarps to prevent water from coming inside the building, as shown in the upper right-hand picture with the rusted lintel and the blistered paint. Okay, again, when water comes inside, we have a protocol to make sure that it does not impact other surfaces. Deferred project number 3, we don't have a representative picture, but it's a result of the district-wide security audit that we had done a number of years ago. Okay, during that audit, they identified that we should replace many of the locks on our classroom doors in 31 of the buildings. Okay, this will allow us to become more efficient in securing our classrooms during a lockdown situation. Also recommended was upgrades to our building intercom systems so all call announcements could be made from any classroom instead of having to go to the main office to make an announcement. Project 4, which you do have a picture of, shows deteriorated asphalt and concrete that needs to be replaced. Currently, we are band-aiding these areas by isolated patching, whether it be individual potholes, a section of the drive lane, or a portion of the parking lot. However, at some point, the total area will need to be replaced. Repairs made to the subbase and either new asphalt or concrete installed. Project 5, again, we don't have a picture. However, these are systems that control many of our schools' heating and cooling systems. They're becoming obsolete. In many cases, we can no longer get replacement parts. Okay, when they fail, we will lose the ability to control the temperature in our buildings. Elementary air conditioning. As you know, we had 19 elementary buildings that did not have air conditioning in the classrooms. 4 years ago, we began slowly installing air conditioning units in the classrooms. Unfortunately, this project had to be done in phases when funding became available, either from receiving delayed state payments or when the school board voted to deficit spend. In August 2018, we will finish phase 4 of this project, which has installed air conditioning in 67% of our elementary classrooms. In order to be complete, we still need $7 million to install air conditioning in the remaining classrooms and in the LMC. We have some estimates of our deferred projects. Again, these are just our most common deferred projects, and they are not all of our deferred projects. But as you can see, for masonry and roofs, we need $8 million to get caught up. $7 million to complete elementary air conditioning, $2 million to replace the obsolete heating and cooling controls, and $2 million to upgrade our locks and intercom systems. Unplanned expenses. As you experience with your own home, we sometimes have expenses that pop up that weren't planned for. In late last fall, we responded to door number 5 being hard to open over at Fisher. Further investigation found cracks in a few of the interior walls that indicated a small portion of the exterior wall was rotating slightly outward. We contacted our structural engineer who did an investigation of the whole building and determined that this issue was only occurring in a small isolated portion and it is safe for students and staff to use. Per her recommendation, we installed temporary bracing on the exterior wall between doors numbers 4 and 6 until the cause could be found and to stop further cracks from occurring. You have some of those pictures in your handout. The first one shows the bracing against the exterior wall, and the second one shows the cracks on the interior side of the building. We continue to investigate what is causing this wall to rotate outward, and will be scheduling repairs this summer. As with your home budget, the cost for these unplanned expenses further deplete the amount of funds that are available for deferred projects. At this time, I'd like to call up Jennifer Costanzo.
Thanks, Todd. So what is this impact of continued deferred maintenance? First, it's really increased cost for repairs and also a compromising of your building envelope. I'd like to talk a little bit first about cost. So when budget constraints force your maintenance into a reactive process rather than proactive, you're often just taking off little bites at a time, doing small repairs over the years, and this is a premium cost because you're not really getting an economy of scale when you bundle these small repairs along with other construction work. Worst case, these repairs become an emergency or an urgent situation. Again, a premium when you're doing stuff in short notice. And also, this often may happen during the school year, so you're trying to schedule that work after hours and, again, paying a premium for construction to happen after normal working hours. So it just kind of spirals onto that issue. Building envelope issues. Leaks and roofs and walls will continue to grow exponentially with freeze-thaw cycles, and if not addressed quickly, the leaks will continue to cause damage not only to the immediate system that it's in, but also to the structure and the insulation that's behind it. So if it's not addressed quickly, you can start to have deterioration of the structure or the insulation below the roofing system, and eventually start to affect the interior property. Your indoor environment is also impacted with continued air leaks through roofing and walls. You have a loss of thermal comfort within the spaces. The insulation can become wet and therefore ineffective. And you also have an increase in energy costs because you're continually trying to heat and cool spaces that are not necessarily a tight envelope. So, you know, the Buildings and Grounds Department here has done a lot with a little, but eventually there is a tipping point. And while the district's ultimate purpose here is to educate your students and prepare them for the future, it is very important to have an environment that's conducive to learning. So your building envelopes are really meant to keep your occupants warm, safe, and dry. And it's important to get to a baseline where those environments are warm and dry inside, and then start to look at maintenance that is not reactive but is proactive, that is a controlled expense that's equal across all of your facilities in order to maintain that baseline. And from there, you can then start to look at not just keeping everybody warm, safe, and dry, but impact the physical and technological changes that are getting you ready for the next generation of learning.
In closing, we're deferred a number of projects and don't have a means to catch up on those projects, and we are not in the position to meet the $8.5 million that the facility assessment says that we should be putting into our buildings. So we're we're behind the 8 ball and some, I guess, in front of the 8 ball. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as you think about this, think about your home. We've all got our to-do list. I know my water heater is coming up on 20 years, and you know, I should probably think about replacing it now, or it's very likely that in the next year I'll come in with a cold shower. So think about your home as you think about, you know, those maintenance projects around your house, the windows, the painting, the driveway that maybe needs to be resealed or replaced, and when you think about this presentation.